Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Calling All Creatures. As a lot of you know that listen in all the time, I am Lori, your host, and tonight I have a really cool podcast to share with you guys. I have Dr. Cliff Redford on with me, also known as the Worldwide Vet. And he not only has his own practice in Canada doing all sorts of really good work up there, but he also travels around the United States, around the world, and offers his services in all sorts of different countries where it's needed. So I'm looking really forward to learning a lot more about Dr. Cliff and his travels. So Dr. Cliff, thank you so much for being on the podcast tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to learn more about all the stuff you do. So just starting out, for like the listeners that are maybe just meeting you or hearing about you for the first time, how did you actually become Dr. Cliff, the Worldwide Vet?
Well, my dad met my mom about 60 years ago. We don't need to go that far back. I graduated from Guelph, from OVC in 98, so the last century, and bought my practice in Markham, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto, 26 years ago, actually. We just had our 26th anniversary, so I'm very excited.
Oh, congratulations.
And, yeah, thank you. 9.5 years ago, I started traveling and volunteering, and my kids joke that it was a bit of a midlife crisis, which may be true. I was 43 at the time. My kids were just kind of leaving the house, going to university, so maybe I had some extra time on my hands. Who knows? I was running away from something. And I traveled to Jamaica. I went to Jamaica for 3 weeks, and I actually went to not only volunteer, but to film. I had this crazy idea of developing a TV show. It was a dream of mine for a long time, and it was going to be an adventure travel animal rescue show, kind of Dr. Paul meets Anthony Bourdain sort of thing. So I thought Jamaica would be great. I had a film crew with me. I paid them in pizza, beer, and a trip to Jamaica, so they were happy with that, being all new students. And while the TV show thing, although I kept pursuing it with my other travels, never panned out, and I haven't given up fully on it, but, prognosis doesn't look good. I really got bit by the travel bug. And again, maybe it was a midlife crisis. I think it's more of just a midlife opportunity. And since then, I've probably gone on maybe 10 trips around the world in different places, and had a lot of adventures and learned a lot as well, which is a key thing.
Isn't it funny that when we kind of hit our later 40s, that if we do something like that we're reaching a midlife crisis? I got told the same thing because my mom had gotten in a couple vehicles when her mother-in-law passed away, and she paid for them and brought me and said, "Here, make a choice on what one you want." So I took an Escape, because it kind of worked well. I was doing animal control at the time, and I was bringing dogs and cats and stuff back and forth to the PetSmart to get them up for adoption. And so, but I'm a Camaro person at heart. And so after having the Escape for a couple years or so, I traded it in and got myself a Camaro. And my gosh, you would have thought the world ended. I was going through a midlife crisis. I'm like, seriously? I've owned I don't know how many Camaros up to this point. So.
Yeah, well, see, you were lucky that you had owned them when you were younger. But I mean, the reality is a lot of us do have these things we dream about and we really want, and often we don't have the time or the money or the opportunity when we're younger. And so it really is more like a midlife opportunity. And who doesn't want to travel more? Most people want to, and we sometimes just don't have that opportunity till later on in life. But maybe all the tattoos I have, maybe that's a midlife crisis. That I could understand. Or getting into boxing late in life, stuff like that. But I love it. It keeps me young at heart. Not necessarily young in my knees, but I love all of it, and I'm going to be doing it for a long time, I think.
It's funny because I'm not a person that really, I don't usually have a lot of money either, and I don't like to spend money on myself either. And so, so my son literally had to talk me into getting that Camaro because I wasn't going to get it. And he was just like, Mom, you work really hard. You deserve, because it was the first brand new car I had ever bought. And I was in my, like I said, later 40s. So he was just like, you need to get the car. And like you, I've been getting tattoos now for several years. So. But mine was more because I was always afraid of needles. But yeah, tattoos aren't that bad.
There you go. And the thing is, a good tattoo tells a story, right? It tells a story about us. And, it's an artistic expression. No one really has any interesting stories in their 20s. They gotta wait till they're a little bit older till they have some really interesting stories. So any 20-year-olds listening to this that have a bunch of tattoos, you guys have a young age crisis. That's what I think's going on.
My grandson, who's 18, just got his first tattoo, and it's kind of cool. He likes this band called Sleep Token, and they have a cover of one of their albums, and he kind of had that done. It's like a tree branch with a couple needles, and it looks like, the needles are coming out of the skin, and then he had these flowers put on the tree branch that represented all of us as family members to him.
Beautiful.
So, it was pretty cool. I myself have mostly Native American type tattoos because I'm part Native American. So I've got, a dream catcher and a wolf, and my brother passed away years ago, so I got one done and got his memory, name and stuff on my arm, and then the rest is just general different Indian stuff. So you're right. It does. Beautiful. It kind of tells a story about yourself and the things that you like and believe in. So I'm glad that my grandson made the choice to get what he got, because it turned out really good, and I was really impressed that he wanted to show all of his sisters and mom and grandma and uncle and all that on his tattoo. So
beautiful. It's hard. It's harder too for the family to disapprove of it when it has such a family connection to it.
Exactly. So when you went to Jamaica to try to do your filming, was that kind of when you realized that maybe your work was going to extend farther beyond your traditional clinic, or was it maybe after that you kind of figured that out?
It was definitely, by the time I left Jamaica, I knew this is a new addition to my work, to my career. And I've always loved being a veterinarian. I've never felt burnt out. I've never felt, sort of unappreciated, or I knew the work that I did was important. So I wasn't necessarily looking for a change, but a change came, and I still love my clinic, and I was working there today, and, I'm working there all the time when I'm not traveling, and it's generally a cat and dog clinic. But Jamaica opened up new eyes to me. I ended up doing more work than just with cats and dogs. I did my first ever crocodile surgery.
Oh my gosh!
When I was in Jamaica, I know I had to remove the crocodile's eye, and did some work with these little micro bats called greater funnel-eared bats, and did some work with the iguana sanctuary that's going on there, and did scuba diving and planted coral to help rejuvenate the fish population and the coral population there. So I really got opened, to these new services, I guess, or these new interests. And since then, I started volunteering in a wildlife place to get some wildlife experience here in Ontario. And I was going once a week. It was only supposed to be for 6 months. I ended up doing it for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Because I had a chance to work on bald eagles and deer and coyotes and frogs. And
I watched your video with the bald eagle and her biting you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was American. I think that's what it was. Like, hey, let me go home. No, that was my fault. I got too close to her at the end, so she was giving me a nice little, not painless lesson, but harmless lesson.
Yeah.
It hurt, but it didn't harm me. So that's a good lesson to have. I needed that reminder. So I've now been blessed enough to work on, a rhesus monkey in India and a giant fruit bat in India and work with turtle rescues in Panama, and all the while still doing cats and dogs as well when I'm out there. But it's really made me fall in love with being a veterinarian again, and I do feel really lucky for it.
And those are the kind of things that really do make it worthwhile, because when I was doing animal control, I actually got called because just down from where my animal shelter was, there was a great horned owl, just a young one, not a baby, but a young adult, and it couldn't fly. And our public works guys had called me, and so I took like a medium-sized dog crate down there, and I was able to kind of herd him into the dog crate and get it shut. And then I called we have a wildlife rehab in Tucson, and so I got a hold of them, and they came and picked him up and took him back, and they never did figure out why he couldn't take off and fly. They gave him a couple of baths with Dawn, dishwashing liquid stuff, because he had something on his feathers, kind of I don't know what a substance it was. They didn't really know for sure. But anyway, they cleaned him all up, and actually one of them got a lesson themselves because he bit one of them. I named him Mr. Clack because he would clack his beak at me. And it was kind of cool because, like you with the bald eagle in the video, I got to go with them because they brought him back to our area, and I got to go with them out to release him. So that is really cool when you get to do something like that. So. Yeah,
and especially working with wildlife, like our goal is to rehabilitate them and release them. That's it. That's the goal. Let them go back to their natural life. And I mean, obviously releasing the other animals is cool, but releasing a large bird, a bird of prey, they're so beautiful and so powerful and majestic.
Yep.
And get to see them fly off into the blue yonder is always a real treat.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I can definitely understand it. So, even though mine was just a young great horned owl, it was still so cool to see. He's still a bird of prey, and it was really cool to see him take off and go. So, I understand.
Yeah.
So, do you think that running your full-service clinic that you have for dogs and cats has kind of prepared you for some of those unpredictable conditions that you face when you go on your travels overseas?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's prepared me. Now, I'm a bit of a cowboy when it comes to surgery and medicine. I've always been pretty confident, sometimes at my own detriment, even as a kid. I'm not a very nervous kid, and I don't mind risking things and potentially getting hurt, that sort of thing. So, I knew I was coming from a very top-notch school. University of Guelph is one of the best in the world. And so I knew I was graduating with some really, really strong skills. I was lucky enough to have this great mentor. It was my first clinic job. So I think all veterinarians actually potentially have that ability to do this wildlife work, but they just don't have, some of them, a lot of them unfortunately, don't have the mindset of thinking out of the box, working with others. An important thing is working with others that are not veterinarians and keeping your mouth shut and learning from them. When I first started at the wildlife place, I had no wildlife experience, no orthopedic experience. They basically said, you better learn how to start fixing broken bones because you're our only veterinarian and we're really busy and birds break their bones like crazy. So I started reading books and watching videos and looking at radiographs from other surgeons. And when animals died, I would then break their legs or their wings, and I would then fix them and take x-rays and make sure I did it right. But the big thing is I would ask these rehabbers. These rehabbers are so smart. And the joke was they would always say, this is not a cat, right? Because I would always say, look, if this was a cat, this is what I would do. I would do pain medication and antibiotics, and we have to stabilize this or maybe run a test for this and that. Now you tell me, because I know this is not a cat, what antibiotic can I not give? Or what pain medication would work the best? And so I was able to take my theory and my foundation of science and comparative anatomy and whatnot but then put it to their real life skills. And I think veterinarians have those abilities, those physical abilities and that knowledge, but a lot of them don't have the mindset. And owning a clinic doesn't necessarily give you that mindset, because there's a lot of clinicians that still to this day come to me and say, I can't imagine you do what you do. How did you figure all this stuff out? And I say, look, you were smart. You can figure this stuff out too. You just have to be passionate about it. But it takes a lot, right? Like, it takes me away from my practice, and it's a lot of planning, and, you know, it costs me a lot because I finance all these trips myself. And so it's not for everybody, but it was certainly an opportunity that I had, and one that I absolutely love now.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you get to do it. I've been enjoying watching some of those videos that you do, because they're really good.
I appreciate it.
And I'm kind of glad, you talked about being taken away from your practice, because that kind of leads me to the next thing I was going to ask about how your clinic clients, kind of respond to your international rescue work and stuff. I mean, does it kind of change how they see veterinary care, or do they get a little miffed if you're gone a bit and busy doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't really hear anybody who gets miffed. I've been in practice for so long that, first of all, I'm on a multi-generational practice now, or my clients are, in the sense of, I remember, little Timmy, when he was 7 years old, coming in with his father and his puppy, and I'm letting little Timmy listen to the heart. Well, now little Timmy is 30, or 35, and he has his own kid who's the same age, and he'll tell his kid, I remember doing this with this same man 30 years ago with my dog, so now you get to do it. So there's this real strong bond that I have with my clients. But even some of them, the new ones, look, the new ones come to me because they see me on doing talk shows all the time, and they see me on Instagram, and they're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. You can do this with a bald eagle. You must be able to help me with my cat. So I'm happy to see them. But I have a great team. I have a great group of technicians and non-veterinarians. I have a part-time vet that works with me and a full-time vet that works with me, and they work extra hours when I'm gone. I joke that my clients make me pay for going away, because a couple of days before going away, they book me up solid. And when I get back, there are some clients that if they can wait, they will wait to see me, and that's fine. So we are slammed when I get back. And I don't mind it, but they're inspired. They like what I do. They're very supportive. When I do fundraisers that go to the charities, my clients have been very good at supporting that and making donations.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they refer me to their friends. So, they're happy. And look, I'm gone at most. I think the craziest year was right after the pandemic, and I went away for about 9 weeks over 4 different trips within a year. So that's a lot. But there are other years where I'll only go for 2 weeks for the entire year. So, and I use my vacation time. Like, I just had my first real vacation where I wasn't volunteering, where I did a 5-day trip surfing in Costa Rica, and that was my first vacation in 6 years. That wasn't volunteer related. So I'm not gone from the clinic too often.
Well, and like myself, when you find a good vet that you can trust and, isn't going to sugarcoat things and isn't going to try to have unrealistic, expectations of, certain things and trying to get, you to do all, like, you get a 17-year-old dog and it's like, why are you going to do a million tests, to do certain things? But I like my vet because she's like that. I mean, she just sticks, with the dogs and the cats and stuff like that. I don't think they do anything exotic-wise, unless maybe they do something with some of the lizards, I'm not sure, or birds. But other than that, she kind of sticks to that. But she's always very straightforward when she tells me things, and she doesn't sugarcoat things. And she'll tell you whether it's, worth, trying to do a whole lot of tests or, something that maybe you should just, try to make the end of their life the best that you can and make them happy and, things like that. So I really respect that.
Yeah, and as far as me traveling and doing volunteering, like we all want a family physician. If our family physician was to disappear for a while to do volunteer work in underserviced communities, whether it's in the country that we live in or in another country, we'd be applauding them. And it's no different with veterinarians. So
exactly,
people love their pets. They want veterinarians who also love animals. So they're very excited when they hear of me or other colleagues doing things like this.
Right. So would you consider Jamaica like your very first kind of mission that you went on volunteering internationally?
Yeah, it was absolutely my very first, and it was my last. It's not my last, my most recent, let's say. I just went to Jamaica in December to volunteer with the devastation that Hurricane Melissa caused.
Mm-hmm.
And not only hurt, obviously, a lot of people and displaced people and hurt a lot of animals, but like the animals were starting to get leptospirosis, which was killing the animals, and they were giving it to people and killing the people. So we were able to vaccinate the animals to try and help the people stay safe. And so it was this nice sort of full circle. And I'll be going back to Jamaica pretty regularly, but I'm sure I'll be going elsewhere as well. But yeah, it started with Jamaica, and then the next place was Greece. I met a woman. She's now my wife. She's a Greek lady. We went and visited her family. This is before I knew she was going to be my wife. I was just going for a fun vacation. And went and did a bit of volunteer work with a cat rescue that was taking care of the street cats in Athens. Mm. And we'd vaccinate them and medicate them and scoop some up if they looked injured and take them to the vet. And unfortunately, at that time, and pretty much happens every summer, there was a wildfire nearby, and it had destroyed a small community and killed some people and killed a lot of animals. So a couple of days after the fire was out and things were safe, we went in, and as a last-minute sort of rescue mission, went in and rescued a bunch of animals that had been burned and had smoke inhalation. And so that was my second trip. But yeah, Jamaica popped the cherry, so to speak, in my crazy travel life. And I've gone as far as India, as far as, I guess, east, and as far south as Panama, and even went up to the Arctic Circle in Canada a few times in January.
Oh my gosh, you're brave. You're brave.
Minus 40 below zero and almost no sunlight. But I've learned I like experiencing different places that are not, and I'm going to use this in a global sort of generalization, not Americanized in the sense of, and Canada is pretty much just a colder version of America with better hockey players. We and almost better baseball players this past season. But of course, I think they all came to the Dominican. But
we have our football players, though.
100%, yeah, that is true. Yeah, we have a football league here called the Canadian Football League, and it's a bit of a joke. It's like nine teams, and I mean, an average U.S. college team could probably beat our professional team. But I don't like going. Like even when I went to Jamaica, we didn't stay in a resort. We did an Airbnb, and we were down out in the jungle, I guess, or in the tiny parishes doing work, and so whenever I pick a place to go, I want to make sure it's very different culturally from North America in general, because I like to experience these different things, and it's taken me all over the place, and I love it.
That's awesome, and that's kind of leads into this next question, because you've gone to so many places, and a lot of these ones that you go to, some of them have very little to hardly any veterinary infrastructure. So what's that biggest adjustment for you when you arrive in those types of places and try to help?
Yeah, and I've learned the hard way. I need to do a lot of research before I go, because when I went to Egypt, I went to help with this one major case of a dog that was injured, and then work with the dog rescue and deal with their dogs. But while they had 300 dogs, there wasn't a lot of work to do, and it was kind of tough working with the veterinarian. There just wasn't the infrastructure in place. And Egypt is quite well developed. It was just this one sort of organization. So I didn't really do the work and they needed to. But I've learned very quickly, and Jamaica was a great lesson because Jamaica's still using injectable anesthetics that we stopped using in dogs 30 years ago. But that's all that they have, right? So, whether I've been in India or in Bocas del Toro or in Panama, or in Ukraine during the war, like,
oh my gosh, that'd be crazy.
I'm able to, yeah, it was pretty crazy, and some wonderful stories and some wonderful people, and I hope that war ends very soon, obviously. But I've learned to, make sure that there is an infrastructure in the sense of, well, who am I working with? Am I working with an animal rescue group like I did in India, or am I working much more as a veterinarian instead of an animal rescuer like I am in some of these other countries? And then where am I going to get the drugs? And do I need a special license? Or do we just ignore that and give someone some extra cash if they ask us questions, which I've had to do a few times. And if I'm going to be working with a veterinarian, what are their skill sets? But again, I've found that everyone has so much to offer, and even if the standards are quite different, I can lower my standards as long as they're not, below minimum. Obviously, animals can't let them feel pain when we're doing surgery, things like that. But and that's never really been an issue. But they're able to teach me a lot with different techniques and older techniques or newer versions of older techniques that I'm not aware of. And just between me and the other vet or me and the rescue team, we're always able to figure things out, because the reality is they're taking care of animals when I'm not there, right? So there's got to be a method, and it just allows me to maybe up their game a little bit. And again, I'll say it over and over again, it allows me to learn something as well, which is always fascinating.
Well, exactly. I mean, because, like you were talking about, there's so many different cultural differences in, how animals are treated in some of these other countries, but they, like you said, they might have a procedure or might have, know how to do something, that you get to learn that's something new, and you might be able to show them some new things, whether or not they're able to implement them with their limited, things that they have, their tools and the drugs and stuff like that. But it sounds like you guys kind of end up working well with each other and kind of respecting, each other with those cultural differences. So,
yeah, definitely 100%. And it's, I don't tip-tap through these things, or tiptoe through these things. I'll open up the conversation pretty quickly, and if I don't agree with something, I speak up, and we're able to have these sort of mutual, respectable conversations. But I always make sure I try and leave the place and leave it where it's better than when I arrived. And that might be as simple as like when I was in Egypt and I'm working with this shelter and these guys that had no training whatsoever and were tasked to take care of these 300 dogs. I was able to explain to the leader, and he was very open and excited to learn because he loved these dogs so much. I was just able to say, look, you're going to have only 4 sort of problems to deal with. Pain, here's your pain medications, and, let's just stick with 2 or 3 simple ones. Infection, here's just 2 simple antibiotics that work very, very well. You can pick one or pick the other. And when in doubt, you can even do both. They work really, really well together. And then there was trauma cases, and that's where he calls the veterinarian, like serious trauma cases. And then skin issues, which are like ticks, and he was actually better at dealing with those than I was. So he was able to, I would challenge him at the end. I'd be like, okay, what do you think the problem is? And he'd be like, okay, this looks like an infection. Great. Which drug are you going to pick? How about this one? Yeah, perfect. So, it's nice to be able to leave them with some of that knowledge. And then I keep in touch with these guys, and they send me questions, and they share with me some of their successes. And so it's nice. And people want to learn, people in this industry, you, me, and so many others and all the listeners, they want to do better for animals. And if you have an opportunity to learn, even if you're not going to be doing veterinarian level stuff, it's still beneficial. So it's like a nice little legacy, hopefully, that I'm going to have.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it. I mean, if since you're staying in contact and they do still ask you some questions about things, it does sound like you're kind of making that little legacy and still helping them out, and that's all it matters and that's the great thing about it. So
yeah, and there have been times when I've returned. I've been to India twice, and again I just went to Jamaica for the second time, and I'll probably start making Jamaica almost like a home base volunteer place where I may actually get I might actually write my vet license exam there instead of having to constantly do an emergency temporary license. But going to Jamaica maybe every 4 months, because they have such an amazing infrastructure that I can just show up with a week's notice after the world's worst hurricane ever, and certainly the worst to hit Jamaica, and so devastating. And I show up with a week's notice, and they're like, yep, you're going to do this for this day, and the next 2 days we're going to drive you up to the grill, and you're going to work there, and you're going to do a community clinic. So, and that's what I like. Like when I go, I want to work, and stay busy, and that's sort of my vacation. So Jamaica may become like a normal place, a regular stop for me, but the weather kind of helps too, which is nice. But I like, I become such good friends with all these people. Even if I'm only there for 10 days, I become such strong friends with them because it's like we went through basic training together. We went through our own little mini conflict that we together solved the problem. And that's what bonds people together, these mutual loves and these mutual challenges that we overcome. So they're like my extended family. So, yeah, I'm going to keep in touch with them forever.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and I'm sure they appreciate it too. Because any help they can get, especially in some of those areas they're in, I'm sure they're very appreciative of any help they get. Mm-hmm. So, So when you're working in some of those crisis and conflict affected areas, say like Ukraine there with the war going on, how does that kind of change the stakes of your work? I mean, that's got to be really, stressful, number one, because you're kind of over there and you've got this war going on, and of course these people, they're being displaced along with their animals, and like you said, people and the animals both being injured or killed and stuff like that. I mean, that would be just so stressful to have to try to work in those kinds of conditions.
Yeah, it absolutely was, and I took some advice that I had from another traveling volunteer that wasn't a veterinarian, but had done a lot of work in conflict areas, and he said, when you get back home, you need to talk to somebody. Like you need to talk to a therapist, because you're gonna. I was like, I'm fine. He's like, trust me, you're gonna need to talk to somebody, and he was 100% correct. There's definitely some sort of mini PTSD that was going on, because my second trip to Ukraine was in Kharkiv. I had to arrive with a bulletproof vest, a flak jacket vest, and a helmet. And when I picked out an apartment to rent, we had to pick one that was not very likely to be hit by a missile. And if it was foundationally, solid. And where was the bunker? And all these things that you never think you'd have to think about. Some of my work, we actually went into the Donbass region, when the fighting was less severe, but still quite dangerous, and we had to watch where we walked if we got off the road, because there might be mines.
Right.
All these problems. And even when we were doing surgery in the clinic, and it was a clinic that was abandoned temporarily by a veterinarian that gave the keys to this animal rescue. I'm doing surgery, and there's bombs landing near enough to us that it was shaking the building.
Oh my
gosh. It was like a subway was going underneath. And there's one, for those that follow me on Instagram, if you scroll like 3 years up, because it was it'll be 4 years this coming summer. So 3.5 years ago is when I went to the dangerous area. There was one point where a missile landed a quarter of a mile from my apartment while I was filming some stuff out the window.
Wow.
Big blast and everything shakes, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go. And I go down to the bunker and wait. So it was scary. It was stressful, but like I got to come home. I was there for 2 weeks. My friends are still there, and in the beginning of the war, an animal rescuer who was bringing food to a shelter was shot and killed.
I'm sorry.
And they knew, the Russians knew that this person was a aid worker, not in military, fatigues, et cetera, et cetera. So it's dangerous for them. It was dangerous for me temporarily. It was dangerous for them, and still is, and yet they're still there doing what they can to help out animals.
Yeah, that is one of the most amazing thing about those people that are doing that, is that they continue to do that kind of work, even when it's a danger to their own lives and things like that. Like like you said, and I'm sorry for the loss of that aid worker, because that's just, I couldn't imagine trying to do the things that those people are doing in that type of a crisis situation, and with all of that going on around with the bombs and the missiles and stuff. That's just crazy. So kudos to all of them for doing that kind of work and taking care of animals and the people and everything over there. So
yeah, absolutely, they're a real inspiration.
Yeah. Now, how would you define animal advocacy, and why do you think it's kind of really critical right now?
Yeah, this may sound simple, but I like to end my own podcast with "Be kind to animals," and that's where animal advocacy comes in, is treating them with the respect that they need. I do not argue with people who hunt. I recognize hunting as a need. And it even has some conservation benefits if done properly. So it doesn't necessarily mean, treating them with kid gloves, but it's respecting animals and recognizing that we're sharing this planet with them. This is not our planet. This is theirs as much as ours, arguably more theirs. We're just the dominant species here. But hopefully we're also the most intelligent species, maybe.
I don't think so some days.
Yeah, it depends. Dolphins are supposed to be pretty smart. Octopus are pretty smart. There's probably a lot of intelligent animals that we're not. We just think the intelligence is, if you can't type on a computer, you're not intelligent. There's other forms, but give them their space and share this world with them. And why is it important? This whole planet, as big as it is not that big. Like, the ecosystem is fragile. It's always fragile. It's always shifting. And if we don't respect that ecosystem and the need for animal conservation and land conservation, and ecology, we're going to hurt. It's going to hurt us as a society with diseases and food and climate change and all these different things, and species loss. All these things are going to affect us and affect our children and our ancestors. So if we are such a smart species, the smart thing to do is give animals the respect that they need as a whole, and recognize how connected we all are.
I agree. I was amazed, through some of the podcast, because I've been doing my podcast now it's about 7 years now, and I had Ann and Mary Dagg on the show with me, and Anne was the one who started out in the 50s. She went as a woman who wasn't supposed to be doing these kinds of things to Africa to research giraffes and stuff like that. And so while we were talking, and I had read on, because I researched before I do the podcast quite often, I was amazed to find out how much the giraffe population has gone down. I mean, literally giraffes will be going extinct also if we don't start doing something, and quick. Poachers are killing them off, which I was amazed. I was like, wow, poaching. You think about poaching with certain animals, but giraffes, I never really thought about it with them. But poachers are a big thing, killing them in Africa and stuff. And it was amazing to find out how much the population has decreased from what it was, back in the 50s and 60s to now. And the really cool thing is they've at least started doing some education in the schools over there to teach the children, about all these different animals and conservation efforts and stuff like that. And hopefully the newer generation will, help to maybe bring them back. And again, too, a lot of it is, they're building, more buildings and cities and stuff like that too, which is, of course, like everywhere else, pushing the animals out of their natural habitats. So, we really do need to start doing a better job when we're supposed to be the smarter species, although, like we said earlier, not quite sure about all that. But, I'm just amazed when I hear about some of the stuff doing these podcasts and some of the things that I learn about all the different things that are going on and how bad, it is for a lot of these different animals. So it's crazy. And we're going to lose them if we don't start respecting them better and taking care of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you think is some of the most urgent global animal welfare issues that you see firsthand when you're in your travels?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't traveled to the Amazon rainforest yet, but globally the deforestation of the rainforest is such a big issue. Not only for farming, they deforest a lot of it for farming for cattle, and it's often to go into McDonald's hamburgers or to plant potatoes for their French fries. But also massive deforestation for gold mining, and they completely burn and utilize mercury in the soil to kind of pull up the gold, and then they burn off the mercury, which goes into the air and then lands down in the fish and cause mercury poisoning in the fish, and all these workers are getting cancer. Like, there's so many bad things that are happening, and then the big thing is loss of land, anywhere, loss of habitat. And look, I get it. I'm still part of Team Human. Like, I get we're growing. And, I understand it would be very arrogant of me to sort of speak ill of a country that is developing and is, pretty impoverished, especially compared to North American standards, and maybe saying, hey, guys in India or guys in South America, you shouldn't be growing like this. You shouldn't be building so many buildings, or you shouldn't be, building so many highways or whatnot. And yet they're struggling much more than, say, again, the average community in North America is. So I think the richer countries, and the U.S. is one of them, and Canada is one of them, and a lot of places in Europe, they need to be more helpful with these countries as a global scale. And this is going to sound kumbaya, and I recognize it's very complicated, and there's political divisions and whatnot, but like, they're our neighbors, right? Like, they may not live next door to us, but they live on our planet. And if we're going to expect them to stop creating so much garbage and stop creating so much pollution and follow our standards, how about we help them instead of just holding them down and saying you're not allowed to do this because it's hurting the environment? They got kids they got to feed. So I do think we are the most intelligent species. We are absolutely the most arrogant species. And so we need to Again, be kind to animals, but also be kind to other people. And I think in the end, we all want this world to be healthier. But we also want our children to live and our communities to thrive. So I do think there's a way. We get people on the moon, if you believe that. We got people on the moon. We got rocket ships. We got all these cool technologies. We should be able to figure out how to do this without hurting the environment and without hurting the large-scale animal population.
Yeah, we had people on the moon many years ago. I don't think they can figure out how to get us back there because I think they have some...
I guess that's the argument. That's the argument from the moon deniers is, why can't they do it now? I don't know enough about the whole denying the moon landing thing, but I do know it's a thing that people deny it.
So, yeah.
Who knows?
Well,
I'm just a veterinarian. I
don't want to offend anybody.
There's any animals up there, so I don't care. I'm not going up there.
I don't want to offend anybody, but we have the flat earthers as well that still think the Earth is flat in that realm.
The best one I like is the space is fake. Those that believe space doesn't exist and we're actually in a dome. Okay. Again, I don't care. I got an animal I got to take care of. I could care less. Whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if space is there. I'm never going there.
Yeah, that's true.
If the government's lying to me about it, I don't care. What are they doing about the ducks? That's all I care about.
Hey, we're all just a big quantum physics experiment for the aliens, so,
That's fair enough. That's right. I think we're ancestors of the aliens. I think they created us.
I think they're just waiting to see how long it's going to take us to destroy each other, to be honest with you.
That's right, yeah. We're all just one big social experiment. They're watching us. We're probably a reality show for them.
That's what I'm thinking. It's kind of like the Truman Show. This is the Earth Show.
That's right. The human show. Who knows? Yeah,
and it's funny because you talk about the United States and Canada and some of the other countries that are more advanced and stuff than some of the other countries, but my God, we can't even do good for our own country, let alone. We got to start learning how to do things better for our country and the people and the animals that are in our country, and then try to help the other countries because, I hate to say this, but we sure aren't very smart when it comes to our own countries and trying to make things better for ourselves because all we're doing is damaging things and polluting and destroying the atmosphere. We're no better than any of these other countries when you really want to stop and think about it. And we could be because we have all these different options that we could be so much better, and then we could give that knowledge to the other countries. But first we got to, figure it out ourselves and quit being dumb about things. But
I think there's no doubt that our countries have the resources and the money and the intellect to fix most of these problems.
Yeah.
We don't have the desire or the will. And while we have the money, and this sounds very cynical, it's not very profitable to fix troubling communities, and it's not very profitable it's not profitable at all to worry about certain, wildlife situations or animal rights or human rights sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like if there's not oil involved or power or whatever, we don't necessarily want to focus on it, which is a shame.
Yeah.
And it's again, maybe I'm like an ostrich sticking its head in the sand. It's again why I focus on the animals, man. There's nothing I can do about the global political challenges. So I'm just going to help one person by helping their puppy, and another person by helping their cat, and then the occasional bald eagle, and all these things. And it's my own little world that I'm trying to help out with, and it's keeping me happy. And maybe that ostrich with his head in the sand is pretty happy. So maybe I'll do that every once in a while.
Yeah, well, that's really all people like you and I can do because, like you said, we're not up there in that big piece of pie to where, they're going to listen to us and what we say or make a difference. But at least you can make a difference in your own little area, your own little, part of the space that you live in. And that's, I guess, that's a good thing when it comes right down to it. Because like you said, you can go help out the puppy and you're going to make that puppy's life better, and you're going to make that puppy's owner's life, a little better, and they're going to be happier. And, and that's just it. We do really need to, I agree, learn how to treat other human beings, kinder and with more respect and things like that.
Yeah, the respect's a big thing. Like, respect people's difference of opinions, and we got to stop being so tribal, and you and I are from two completely different countries that seem to be bickering right now, and who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you and I, we probably fall along pretty similar political lines, but even if we don't, who cares? It doesn't matter. We're talking about the love of animals, and the love of different creatures, and there's always something you can connect with another person, whether they're your neighbor that thinks differently, again, politically or religiously, or someone who doesn't even speak your language, and you're in another country volunteering. There is always something you can connect with that person with.
Yep, exactly. And, it's funny, I say that all the time. I'm like, why can't, good grief, everybody just needs to ditch the political bull crap and start remembering. I was just I just posted something on Facebook the other day because the political stuff is just killing me, but I literally am not a part of either party. I love both of the parties that we have here because I can't stand either side. But I'm just like, why I wasn't raised like what's going on. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to know right from wrong, and a lot of the stuff that's going on nowadays is so wrong. It's like, people, you need to start remembering how, you were raised, and you all know right from wrong, and you should be able to tell that something is wrong or if it's right, and and quit trying to justify things that are wrong, because that's just craziness. It's just craziness that's going on in the world, and it's not just my country or your country. There's a lot of countries that are like that, and it's just craziness that goes on. And people, and that's why I say all the time, people, you need to learn how to be human. And everybody deserves empathy and compassion. Animals deserve empathy and compassion. Other people, doesn't matter what country they're from, deserve empathy and compassion. It's just craziness out here, and people need to get back to knowing what's right and what's wrong. That's just, I think, the bottom line kind of it. But if that day comes, I will probably faint.
It might be after our time.
It probably will be.
But hopefully we can inspire our children and our children's children to fight the good fight. And again, sooner or later, the aliens are just going to flick the switch on the reality show and just decide this is boring. Let's stop this. Let's go do something else.
I tell people all the time, I just wish they'd come and pick me up, because I just want to get out of here. You can come get me anytime. I'm ready. I'm hitchhiking my way off the earth here.
As long as they got puppies wherever you're going.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that would be the thing. Got to have those animals.
That's right.
So when you're, in some of these, like you said, I guess, well, you kind of already answered this, I guess, because you said that you had someone that told you would probably need to see a therapist when you come back from some of these places. Because I was going to say, how are you balancing compassion with emotional burnout, when you're seeing some of this suffering on the levels that you see as, that goes on that regularly?
Yeah, and Ukraine was different because, I'm able to handle animals suffering because I'm trying to make them better, and I recognize that sometimes we can't save them, and there's always going to be sickness and injury out there. So Ukraine was different because it was human on human violence and at such a grand scale, and I had no control, right? And kudos to the men and women in the armed forces, and in first responders and people who are dealing with this regularly. Like, I don't know how they do it. But as far as, these animals, like some of these countries, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of infected wounds and open fractures and animals that seem to heal crooked, but they still heal and they still manage, and they just want to be loved and they just need some extra food. And so there are times where I'm crying when I'm taking care of these guys, and I've been on a lot of these trips with my daughter, and she's crying, and other animal rescuers are crying. But then there's also joyful moments, and unfortunately we don't win them all. The way I sort of have survived burnout, other than just feeling fulfilled, I think fulfillment is a great shield against burnout. But whether this is at my clinic or at some of these rescues or when I'm volunteering with the wildlife place, and I've been doing it for so long now, for 28 years as a vet, that it has now become second nature. And no one taught me how to do this, but I will leave the clinic and I will sort of think about, hey, every single animal I saw today left in a better way than when they arrived. Yeah. Maybe they're just more protected against diseases because I gave them a few vaccines. Maybe they're leaving and their pain is reduced. They have arthritis pain. Maybe, unfortunately, I diagnosed them with cancer, but now they can be spoiled by their family and eventually pass away with dignity. Or maybe we had to say goodbye to them and we had to euthanize them because their quality of life was so poor. Right. And that in itself is also an improvement. So it's okay to be sad. That doesn't mean it's worthless. That doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean you don't have value. So I embrace the emotions. I don't try and hide it. Boxing helps when I've had a stressful day. Hitting the punching bag helps. Yeah, get that aggression. Sparring is a good way of forgetting things. My coach punches me in the nose and says, "You aren't paying attention. Stop thinking about work." But no, I mean, I embrace the difficulty and the emotional sort of roller coaster. Tells you you're alive, and I'm doing this because I love it. So because I love it, there are going to be emotional times, and if you love what you do and you feel fulfilled, you don't feel burned out.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think a lot of animal control officers, and myself included, that's some of what you just said is some of the ways that we keep going and doing what we do in that job, because, I look at it as we always walk kind of this thin grayish line in between the black and the white, because you might go in and rescue animals from a bad situation, but then in the end you may end up, having to, God forbid, euthanize them. And it's not just because of the injured or they're sick, it's because people are such a throwaway society that you've got so many coming into the shelters and you're out of space, and then you've got to do something to keep them coming in, because public shelters aren't supposed to be able to say no. Well, I hate to say this, but I've never seen a law that says that, and I did. I was a public shelter manager, and I'm sorry, if I was out of room, I would rather talk to that person that wanted to turn in the animal and say, hey, can you please, if you don't need to absolutely bring this animal in today, can you please give me just a week or, 2 to either try to get a rescue group to get an animal or 2 out of here, or get a couple adoptions. So, because I don't want to have to make a choice of walking back there and looking at an animal that I've been taking care of now for weeks and say, okay, I'm going to have to euthanize you because I got to bring this other one in. So, that's a really hard line that a lot of that's not, and people don't understand, that's not something that most animal control officers enjoy doing. That's not a great part of the job. We hate it.
Yeah.
And some of my best times were when I'd have a dog or a cat in there that, finally found just that right family. And I would come home from work, and I'd be having happy tears, because I'd be like, "Oh my God, they finally got a great home, and they're gonna love it." There's, this dog that loves to play. He's got a family now with kids, and they're gonna have a great life. And, there's the rewards in there too, but it just never ceases to amaze me that some people just think that animal control officers don't feel anything or have any compassion, and they that's not true. I literally had a woman one time tell me that it must be easier for me to put the animals down in the shelter since they didn't belong to me. And I was just looked at her and I was like, what planet are you from?
Yeah, they don't understand. They don't understand.
No.
Or they've got their own problems. They're just trying to lash out and cause pain.
Yeah.
By saying something insensitive. But, look, what I have to deal with is way easier than what you have to deal with and what you just had to describe. I don't do, we call them convenience euthanasias. I don't do them. Maybe they'll be taken to another vet who'll do it. Okay, let that other vet do it. I'm not doing it. So my euthanasias are animals that are sick and animals that are hurt. Now, sometimes it is a financial thing, like, hey, I could save this animal, but if you don't have the funds, and we do our best to work with charities, and there's different grant systems and whatnot, so it's very rare that happens. But even that, the animal is still sick, and without treatment, and if treatment can't go forward, they're going to suffer. So it is a much easier decision to make, whereas what you're describing, that I would burn out. That would be heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
so I be able to do that.
I haven't done it now for, I've been out of it for 10 years now, but the last place I worked, like I said, I was a shelter manager, and before I got there, it was more of a high kill type of shelter because, they did, and I put my foot down. I'm like, no, I am not doing that. I don't believe that I have to euthanize for space if I can work with rescue groups or maybe get something adopted. And most of the public, honest to God, when you explain the situation to them and what's going on, they were fine if they, could hold on to that animal for even a few days, or whatever it might have been before they brought it in. But, it was crazy. But I got to, that's kind of where I was at for euthanizing was, the sick, the elderly ones that were, it was time for them to be, let go because they were not having a good quality of life, or they were very injured and there was nothing that a vet could, help with, stuff like that. So, I did try to get that kind of turned around while I was managing the shelter, and for the most part it worked. So, I didn't really have to euthanize for space because I just refused to do it. I'm like, if you can show me a law that says that as a public shelter, I can't say no for a little bit, then I'd like to see it because I've never seen one. And I've worked in I worked for 2 different cities and for the county, and I knew state ordinances. I have never ever seen where it says that you're a public shelter, so you can't say no to somebody. You have to take everything in. I mean, that's what's expected, but why do we always have to do everything that's expected?
Yep.
So, but a lot of places are finally coming around, and they, they're doing, more of the right things. I will say a lot of the animal shelters and animal control officers, they're doing a really great job of trying to, get these animals out, as alive as opposed to being euthanized. So, I mean, kudos for everybody that's still doing that job and are trying to make a difference, because it is very hard when you are in that line of work and people don't understand it. But, I think they're starting to maybe come around a little bit more. And I had a sign in the shelter that always says, animal overpopulation isn't like a shelter problem, it's a community problem. Because, people need to get their animals spayed and neutered and quit having all of these accidental litters or just breed. Why are you guys going to breed pit bull puppies? Do you know how many pit bulls there are in the world? I'm like, you're not going to make any money off of these dogs. So, if you think you're going to, you're wrong. Chihuahuas, all that kind of stuff. And it depends on where you're at, Like out here where I'm at in Arizona, we have a lot of Chihuahuas and a lot of Pit Bulls. Back east, you might have more of like the Labs and the hunting dogs and stuff like that. But If people need to spay and neuter, and for God's sake, if the dog gets out of your yard, go to, and you think it might be in the shelter, check and see, and if it is, go get the dog, because you're opening back up a kennel that shelter may need, and that means they don't have to maybe make that choice of euthanizing another animal to make room. So, that's the two biggest problems, is the spay neutering and not going to pick up your dog once it gets out and it might be in the shelter. Because, that's...
Wow.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I would run so fast.
Yeah.
I would run so fast to pick up my dog.
Oh, my God. I'm telling you, one of my dogs I had 4 at the time, 5 at the time, and my one was a great escape artist. She would dig everybody out. So she dug everybody out, and 4 of them came back, but my 5th one didn't. I was all over this town where I live. I was hanging up flyers. I called the shelters. I went all over looking for him. He did eventually end up coming home a couple days later. I think somebody had him, but figured out that he liked to chew things up. So they maybe let him back out, and he made his way back home. So I got him back, and I was so happy to see him, and I made sure they couldn't get out anymore. But I couldn't do it. I always told everybody, I had like 7 dogs at one time, and I'm like, if I lose my house, I'm going to be under a bridge with a shopping cart with 7 dogs. So that's just how it's a dream. Yeah, well, I know, right? Sounds
like fun.
So that's just how it was, though. I'm like, I will never give up my dogs. I'm only got one girl left now, and she's 16, 17 years old. So everybody else has passed away, but so I still got my one little old lady dog here. And so,
beautiful.
I'm so glad I got her too. She's such a good girl. But so, as you mentioned, I know we're going just a little over. I'm going to try to get through this real quick. You kind of mentioned that you have your Instagram and you do your videos and stuff like that. Why is it really kind of important for people to see the realities that you're showing with your Instagrams and your videos and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use the word inspire. It sounds so self-absorbing, I guess, but people do find it inspiring and they find it educational, and I think those two things are important. And I do want people to see the real side of veterinary medicine, not only the travels that I do and the wildlife rescue or the rescuing I'm doing abroad, but even some of the interesting cases that just come into my regular practice. Again, I'm very blessed to have this career, and I like to share it with people. And if we can get, especially the young kids, if we can get them interested in sort of animal rights and animal activism and being kind to animals and to people, then maybe our world has some hope.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that your platform is making a difference beyond, the animals themselves with the actual people and stuff like that? Have you had anybody kind of comment on it or give you any insight or opinions?
Oh, I get a lot of wonderful messages, just people telling me how much they enjoy it, and I get a lot of messages over the years. I mean, again, I've been doing this for a decade now, as far as Instagram and whatnot, where I will have young kids reach out to me, and then later on they'll reach out to me and they got into vet school, or they got into vet tech, or they're a marine biologist, or nice. Et cetera, and that's nice. I gotta say, it's really nice to see. There's a lot of wonderful people out there. The vast majority of us are wonderful, and so it's uplifting to see these like-minded individuals that are chasing their dreams, and they're going to be able to do some good in life as well. So it's kind of nice. Yeah,
that's always nice when you hear back from people like that they, kind of, because you, like you said, don't want to use the word inspire, but in a way you do, that you kind of inspired them to go into something like that in the veterinary world, or as a marine biologist, or, anything working with animals, stuff like that. So it's always kind of cool. So for listeners who might want to help out but aren't quite sure where to start, what do you kind of recommend that they might do just as a starting point? Yeah, I mean, obviously not everyone has the ability to
pack up their things and take off for 2 weeks and volunteer elsewhere. They can give back to their community. Like, it doesn't have to be much. You could go volunteer at a shelter. You could even, if you don't have time to volunteer, you could bake them some cookies and bring it by and say, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And it doesn't even have to be animal related, right? Like, the old people have figured it out that volunteering is really rewarding. And, it's because they got the time in their hands, I guess, if they're lucky enough to be retired. And I wish we could somehow teach that to people our age and to kids. So get out there and pick a cause and just and volunteer. And even if the cause is mowing the older lady's lawn who lives down the street, all this stuff is going to pay forward and sideways and backwards and all that stuff. So, just be kind to people. That's all you got to do. I
agree with that. So I know you talked about, Jamaica and maybe kind of making that like your second little home base, but so looking ahead, is that kind of what's next for you in your worldwide vet mission, or are you kind of hoping to do a few other things besides that? What's next for you guys?
Yeah, as far as planning, it looks like in March we'll go back to Jamaica. We might do that every 4 months. We're actually thinking about opening up these trips. Like I go with a couple of technicians. We're thinking about opening up these trips to like civilians, like people are always asking me, hey, can we come along? How do we come and help? And I'll pay my own way and that sort of thing. And I think it would be a great opportunity to start trying to spread that opportunity and get these non-veterinarians and non-technicians, and maybe they're future vets, and maybe they're not. Maybe they're just average folk who just want to help out and are tired of normal vacations. Great, come along. So we're trying to look at that. And as far as other places to volunteer, there will absolutely be other places. It's just now it's gonna, like, something's gonna happen. I was not thinking about going back to Jamaica until Hurricane Melissa happened. And there's going to be a need. There will always be a need somewhere else. And I'm a bit of an ADD kind of guy, that there's always going to be a need in my soul as well to go to some other country that I've never been to. But I don't know what the future holds as far as that. I just know it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Just an idea is sometimes schools, do those classroom trips where the kids go to other countries and stuff like that, like Spain or something like that. Yep. Maybe you could get a school involved with you on one of your trips and see if they would have the parents, maybe send some of the kids along, since, it would be good to kind of let the kids see some of these things firsthand and get that experience.
Yeah. We've only started talking about this idea, and there are a lot of sort of eco-adventure volunteer organizations, whether they're ways around animals or not. What I find is they are, making these numbers up, they seem to be like 70% vacation and 30% volunteer. Mm. And even the volunteer is, you get to do a little bit of hands-on stuff, but you don't really get your, dirt under your fingernails kind of thing. If we're going to do this, like, for example, in Jamaica, you arrive, and for the next 3 days, you're working. It's only 8 hours a day, but you're working, and you're maybe helping out at a spay-neuter clinic, or you're helping out at the zoo, and you're going to be mucking some stalls, and you're going to be learning a lot and making an actual difference. And then you get a day off, and, we plan something fun, and then we go back to doing another 3 days of work. So It's going to be heavily towards the conservation, heavily towards the rescue, heavily towards the educational, and then a tiny little bit of vacation. So my big thing is, can everyone handle that? Like, I need to make sure, if we're going to do this, the people that come along, they gotta recognize what they're going to be in for. We're really going to be making a difference, first and foremost, and educating. So we're not sure. We literally have just started thinking about this and talking about it, and but I think it's going to be well received. Fun.
Well, I wish you luck with that, and I hope you are able to get that going, and that you get people that'll come along and help out and get some of that firsthand knowledge. Because, I mean, for me, that would be just great. I'd love it. I don't care. I would go and I would work the 3 days and take the day off. Yeah. So, but of course I'm a little older and I'm used to the harder work. But yeah, but I think it would be great. So I wish you luck with that, and I hope it does take off for you. So
thank you.
Yeah. Well, if you would like to, I mean, we're going to wrap it up here because I know, it's pretty late where you're at. But if you would like to throw out any contact information or your Instagram or what your podcast is, if people would like to listen to it, why don't you go ahead and throw that out there for the listeners?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Instagram is really the only social media that I use, and it's at Dr. Cliff, Worldwide Vet, Cliff with 2 F's. My podcast, which I've only been doing for years now, so you are the master compared to me. It is called Vet Life, Dr. Cliff, all the different channels. And it's about life of being a veterinarian. It's fun.
Oh, sounds pretty cool. I might have to check that out and listen to it.
Please.
So, yeah, I think I followed you on Instagram already, but I'll have to check out your podcast because that'd be kind of cool to listen to. So
excellent.
Yeah, and I will throw your Instagram and the podcast up on my Facebook page. So if anybody wants to go check it out, they can kind of go to it from my Facebook page as well, because I always do that for everybody. But I really enjoyed having you on tonight and talking about all of this stuff. It was fun. I got to learn a whole lot about all the different things and stuff that you've been able to go and do. So it's been great. I enjoyed talking with you tonight.
I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So, I was going to tell you, I did try to, you just did that little India documentary, correct? Not too long ago. I was going to try to watch it, but it won't let me watch it because I'm not in Canada. Yeah,
so it was picked up by the American Public Television broadcaster. Now the APT doesn't show on every single community. And if for those that do follow me on Instagram, and you'll eventually get, I can't announce it now, but it has been picked up by a small stream service in the U.S. One of those video on demand type of things. So it is going to be available for everyone at a very nominal fee. So their future is bright when it comes to that film, because it's something I'm very, very proud of.
Well, cool. I'll keep an eye out because I know I wanted to go check it out, and I was like, darn it, I can't watch it.
Yeah, sorry. Soon.
It's okay.
Announcement open in the next week.
All right, cool. So I'll keep my eye out for that. And again, I appreciate you being on the podcast tonight. And I'm just going to go ahead and announce my next couple upcoming podcasts. So you are welcome to jump off because, like I said, I know it's a little later your time. So, but again, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you tonight.
Me too as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a good one. Keep up that good work. All right, everybody. So just want to give you guys an announcement on my next couple podcasts that are going to be coming up. So we'll be looking at February 5th. We're going to have, or I'm going to have, I don't know why I say we're, it's just me, Sarah Driscoll on with me. And she is an author, and she has written many different books. I'm sure some of you guys have read them. But her newest one out is called Deadly Trade, and it's her it's canine mystery series. I'm sure, like I said, if you guys have followed her or read her books, then you know about her canine mystery type series. And so Deadly Trade is her newest one. So I'm going to talk with her about that book and how she comes up with all of the wonderful ideas for all the stuff that she writes. And I think it's going to be a great conversation with Sarah. So I'm looking forward to talking with her and learning more about her books. In fact, hopefully by the next couple weeks here, I just bought Deadly Trade, and I'm going to try to get it read before I actually talk with her. So I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully you guys will be too. And then on February 19th, I am going to have Adam Spencer on with me, and he has developed, it's called philanthropy, and what it does is it helps, he has I think different listings and organizations and stuff like that for pet parents when they need help with medical bills and stuff like that. So he is going to be on and talking about philanthropy and how it helps out pet parents when, obviously we know that sometimes vet bills can get up there when you have to do lots of things for your, dogs or cats or whatever, especially, if you are unfortunate enough to, have a diagnosis of cancer or bone breakage and stuff like that, or your dog or your cat or your pet, I should just say pet, needs surgery and stuff done. And so, sometimes you just need a little help. And so Adam has developed that help, and he is going to come on and give us more information about philanthropy. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I have known many people that love their pets, and it's really hard to try to be able to afford, some of that major vet care that you might have to deal with at some point in time. Or, things happen. We understand that. And sometimes, you just aren't prepared and you don't have the extra money and you're living paycheck to paycheck. I've been there and done that. I understand. So anyway, I'm hoping he's going to give us lots of great information about that. So don't forget to come back and listen in on February 5th with Sarah Driscoll, Deadly Trade, and then on February 19th with Adam Spencer for philanthropy. And with that being said, I hope you all stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. Don't get into trouble. And guys, let's try practicing, being kind. And as Dr. Cliff said, be kind to the animals too. Be kind to the animals and be kind to other human beings. Everybody deserves compassion and empathy. So let's try practicing that a little more, and maybe we can make the world a little better place, at least in our little necks of the woods. So maybe not all over, but at least in our little space. So, all right, everybody, thanks for listening in tonight. I appreciate it, and don't forget to come back in a couple weeks. Bye now.